Supreme Chancellor Obi-Wan Kenobi by Stone Feet. Chapter 27. Obi-Wan receives gifts. It's very common, tradition almost, for the Supreme Chancellor to accept gifts from senators who wish to show their appreciation. It's not meant to gain the senators any favor. Officially, at any rate. Former Chancellor Palpatine was easy to please. The man had a taste for old artifacts with history tied to them, especially if there were rumors of Sith or Jedi in said history. If one did not have something like that, anything expensive in gold would do superbly. Chancellor Kenobi, however, is a mystery. All the senators know that the Jedi do not, as a rule, accept outright gifts, even as a thank you for services rendered. They will occasionally accept a gift, if the giver is insistent enough or if it would be considered an insult to refuse. But not always happily. When the very point of giving gifts to the Chancellor is to make them happy, and if said Chancellor insists on being a Jedi before the Chancellor, it gets a bit tricky. Most senators study the Chancellor's suite whenever they have the reasons to visit, generally a meeting of some kind. But there is little change from how the rooms looked during Palpatine's reign. In fact, there are hardly any personal touches whatsoever, unless one counts the large desk hidden away in the corner of the room and that one plant. So life in the Senate continues, though slightly different from before. More and more committees are called, more and more senators find themselves looking over legislation passed in the last few years, and they are horrified. In fact, most committees find themselves completely stupefied upon reading Chancellor Kenobi's long essay with sources and links made to other legislation regarding why this latest piece of legislation should be brought up for the Senate to vote for a repeal. Many senators are startled to see how much power they've lost since the start of the war and even a few years further back. Instead, power has accumulated and consolidated with the Chancellor. Quite a few are troubled. Some want to get in Chancellor Kenobi's good graces in hopes of preferential treatment, as had been possible under Palpatine, while some simply want to thank the Chancellor for his hard work. In the end, it's Senator Monday who solves this conundrum as well. Obi-Wan is so tired of looking at the Chancellor office's red walls. He's never considered what an ugly shade of red they are before, but now that he's been forced to spend days upon days looking at them. He brought his cutting of Qui-Gon's Magrona rose with him and put it on his desk. It's the only green and natural thing in the rooms, possibly even the entire building. It has never been harder to pay attention to the living force than it is now in this almost Sith-red set of rooms, ostentatiously decorated with gold and bronzium. Quite honestly, Obi-Wan thinks Palpatine has a terrible sense of interior design. If he didn't have so much else to put his energy and effort into, he might actually have gone so far as to have the rooms, at the very least, repainted. This much red really cannot be good for a person's peace of mind. And then Senator Monday, it must be her, even though it was sent completely anonymously, sent him a very large bush of blue-bloomed Handuni hydrangea. It's absolutely massive, and the living force practically sings around it. Obi-Wan is not generally one for flights of fancy, but in a way, it is a bit magical. He places it in the corner by the window in front of one of the absolutely dreadful bronzium statues. Why Palpatine likes bronzium statues of members of the Four Sages of Duarte, Obi-Wan can only begin to guess. And smiles as it seems to almost drown the room in green and blue. Soothing. Quite a few senators notice the new addition to the rooms, and quite a few of them correctly concludes that plants might be a good gift for a Jedi. Not that Obi-Wan actually accepts any gifts, only the ones that come anonymously, which he therefore cannot refuse, are kept. Soon enough, the rooms become covered in the most wondrous plants from all over the galaxy. The wide variety of colors, coupled with how much of the living force they brought with them, certainly did a lot for Obi-Wan's mood. Only when the red is finally mostly hidden, at least as far as the walls go, does he realize how oppressive it was. He brings a cutting of the Handuni hydrangea back to his rooms in the temple. They could certainly use such a bush in the room of 1,000 fountains when the time comes.